Hello and welcome to Mile High Reefers. I'm Scott Anderson, and today I'm doing my review of the Giesemann Teszla LED lighting system. This bad boy right there. So, why LEDs? LEDs are actually a dream I've had for my tank for years. I've been reefing for about 8 years now, and about 7 years ago, I decided I wanted to try LEDs. Now, if you remember 7 years ago, LEDs were not readily available. You weren't going to go out and buy an Ecotech, or you weren't going to go buy an AI Radion. You really had to make your own, and there are a couple specialty brands out there, but they were incredibly expensive. So here's how far I got. 7 years ago, I bought a set of 3-watt LEDs, white and blue, and I got my hands on a giant transformer. Actually, my dad bought this for me. And that's about as far as I got. The heat sink was going to be too difficult. The controls were going to be too difficult to get it, the sunrise, sunset effect, and all that kind of stuff. So after throwing like $100 at the project, I gave up on it. And I actually plan to put that together one of these days, now that heat sinks are readily available, controllers are much more available, and all that. But for my tank, I can't afford to gamble on homemade technology by me. I'm an amateur reefer, and even more amateur when it comes to lighting systems. So I chose LEDs because the color is much more adjustable than on a metal halide system. Metal halides, you buy bulbs and you can switch them out. Unfortunately, the bulbs are incredibly expensive, starting at about $50-$60 for a decent bulb and going up from there. So when you got two 250-watt bulbs like I had on my tank, you can see how the cost can dramatically skyrocket just from wanting to play with color, right? If I want to go from 20K to 14K, I've got $60 worth of bulbs, and then I got to throw another $60 worth of bulbs in. And if I don't like that and I want to try 10K, well, there's another $60, right? So that gets incredibly expensive really fast. The other thing is temperature. I've got a 90-gallon system with the sump in the basement. I would run a fan on the back, and I was still getting like 2 degrees of temperature fluctuation without running a chiller, which most people who run metal halides would probably think is really good. But it's still not as good as I'd like to have for my tank. The other thing is power consumption. On my old system, on the old lighting system, the total wattage I was running was a little over 750 watts. I had the 250-watt metal halides and 4 T5 bulbs on there. So my guesstimate for what it was costing me to run this lighting system before was probably $20-$30 a month, which really does add up over time. So what's always held me back from buying LEDs were the cost. At between $500 and $900 for a single light, and I would need 2 or 3 on my tank, it gets really, really expensive to buy those. So when Bulk Reef Supply had the Giesemann Teszlas on the Black Friday sale for $250, I had to snag a couple. So here's what I got, here's how they work, and here's what I think of them. So here's the wide shot of the tank with the Giesemann Teszlas on it. Right now I've got all the lights set at 100%, which has given me a look. My guess is very close to 14K. I've ran 14K before, but it's really kind of hard to tell exactly what your color rating is without the right kind of meters that, of course, I don't have. And it looks really nice. The problem I had with these lights were the first lights I got in, I got one good light and one light where 4 LEDs didn't work. The problem was I turned them on and they looked just fine. I mean, they're so incredibly bright you can't look at them and actually sell anything. They're just blinding. It's unbelievable. But when I put them on the tank, I had a section that was just really blue, and I couldn't figure out why. I tried all the adjustments and everything, and no matter what I did, the light stayed really blue. So I grabbed the welding helmet out of the garage and put it on, and to my surprise, I had 4 burned out bulbs. And of course, this is around the Christmas holiday, so getting a hold of Giesemann was really hard. And eventually I did get a hold of them. I ended up having to go through them and bulk Reef Supply to get a replacement light, and it took about a month, so that was kind of annoying. But they did get me a replacement light, so it is a lot better. The downside is the replacement lights were white when I ordered silver, and you'll see all of that in a minute. But what happened is upon doing all this, I decided I really needed a third light, because I've got a really narrow canopy, and what that means is the lights are really close to the surface of the water, which means my beam spread isn't quite ideal. So what I end up with is a dark section at the center of the tank, and I had this same problem with my metal halides when I ran my hood. It's just too close to the water, so I don't get a big enough beam spread. So Bulk's Resupply sent me 2 white lights and to replace my silver lights, and I ended up calling them up and asking them if I could buy the third silver light back, and they said that was fine. So I actually have 3 Giesemann Teszla LEDs on here. Of course, they don't match color, 2 whites and a silver, and I'm okay with that because it's in the hood, and because it's in the hood is the reason I need 3. Although I am pretty confident that because I have 3, I'm getting a lot more power. Here's the lights on the tank, and as you can see, here's the bracket that I built in an earlier video. And in fact, that's one of the things I'm loving about this light the most, is the slot right here that allows me to run this style of bracket. So now I'm able to move the lights forwards, backwards, and of course side to side, and that gives me huge lighting adjustability. If I hung these guys from the ceiling, I wouldn't have anywhere near that kind of adjustability. So that's one of the things I am absolutely loving about this, is the adjustability. The other problem I'm having is I run on a center brace, so I'm not getting near as much light to pass through this center brace from my center light, but it's still so much better than having just 2 lights on here. 2 lights with the center brace close to the tank just didn't work. It just wasn't enough light. And I suspect I'd have the same problem no matter what lighting system I went with, whether it was the Ecotech Radions or the AIs or anything else. So running this center light makes a tremendous difference, but in the future, it's not a lighting thing I want to upgrade, it's the tank itself. I want to run rimless, just so I don't have that issue. Here's the lights just blasting at the camera, and you can just barely kind of see what's going on here. Maybe that's going to show up better in the video because I can't actually even look at the lights. They're just that incredibly bright. But it's about 65 watts of power per light, which is a bit less than you're going to find on like a Radeon or an AI Vega or Hydra or something like that. But for my application close to the tank, it's going to work out really well. It's got, I believe, 10 white lights and then a mix of the blue and royal blue lights, and for my application it's working out really good. I would definitely guess that these are the equivalent of my 250 watt metal halides as far as par goes when I was running 20K. But they are incredibly bright and they work extremely well in that application. So from that standpoint, I am really happy with the lights. Now that I've got working ones, they are just incredibly bright and put out a lot of light. I am running at 100%, and I have noticed on a lot of people's reviews and videos that people running like Radeons and AIs are actually running lower wattages. They'll be running 45% or 60% or something like that. And my guess is that's because they've got so much more initial power. But they actually seem to be working pretty well so far. Here's what I consider to be the Achilles heel of this light, and that's the out-of-the-box controllability of it. And it's just not very good. The color controls and the timers are just substandard directly out of the box. But here's how you do it, and then you'll kind of understand why it's not very good. So to set the color control, you push the blue button and that drops the color down to either 0 or 1%, and then you hold that button and you let it ramp up through the scale, and you hold it there until you get the color that you want out of that particular color spectrum of bulb. And the big problem with that is you have to do every light. Well, I can't set this light at 60% and then the next two at 60% also. It's just kind of a guesstimate. So what you end up with is 3 lights that look sort of similar, and I don't like that. I wish it had a knob here where I could adjust it to the percentage I want, and that's the color it would set for me. Trying to hold it and have it electronically do it and then try to dial in all 3 lights in is very poor. The other problem is, as you can see, the lights are on and I can't adjust the color. So that would be okay if the timer system was any good, but the timer system is really kind of crap in my opinion. The way the timer system works is you turn the light off, you unplug the light to completely clear the memory, you plug it back in, and then you push this button there, and then it runs through the sunrise effect. Really cool. Now remember, the time you push this button is actually the time the light's going to come on. So you can't set this up at midnight and then have the light come on at 9 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever you want. No, it's exactly the second you push that button is when it's going to come on every day. So you push the button, it runs through its sunrise, sunset effect, and it runs all day. Now, when you want the light to go off, you have to come over and push the button to tell it to go off. Now, once you've done that, it's going to do that every day, which is cool, but to set the timer on the light is literally a 12-hour process, right? Because you have to be there when you want the lights to come on and be there when the lights go off. So that's really annoying. The other night, the power went off in my house, and of course, I had to work the next day, which meant I wasn't going to be home when the lights were going to come on, and I wasn't going to be home when the lights are going to go off, and I can't just preset it ahead of time. So incredibly annoying. So that's my biggest problem with these lights is the controllability. Setting the color isn't very good, and the timer system is really kind of piss poor. It would be really easy to fix this with a real clock on here, start, set, and then you could dial in the duration. Better yet would be a built-in Wi-Fi unit where I could run it off of my computer, cell phone, whatever, but it doesn't have that. Now, all that complaining being said, this light will allow you run it with a controller. Now, Giesemann says that you can run this light off of an Apex or anything else with this port right here, which is currently covered up just so it doesn't get wet, and it looks like a little USB port. Giesemann sells the adapters for that, and Giesemann also sells their own Bluetooth controller, which actually looks really nice. So in the future, I may invest in that. I've always wanted an Apex, but they're really expensive. Now, the other downside is the cord isn't long enough. The cord isn't long enough to run down to the bottom of the tank and have the power supply sitting on the ground. So as it comes, you can see that it basically puts all the pressure on this power port, which is really bad. So I've either got to figure out how I'm going to mount the power supplies to the back of the tank, which there isn't any good way, or I'm probably just going to end up getting a wire tie and tying these off so I'm not putting the pressure on the lighting fixture itself. But so that's another downfall, is the cord should really be long enough that the power supply's on the ground, so all of that additional weight isn't going directly on the lighting system, because 90 gallons, pretty standard tank size and height. Really, this should have a long enough cord that anything you put it on, the power supply will sit on the floor and the cord will plug into the light without putting strain on the plug itself. So overall, it's a really nice light. I'm loving the design of it. It's a great shape, great design. I love the glass. Fit and finish is beautiful. It is a beautiful light, looks great, and works pretty well. The colors are good, the lighting looks good. The downfall is the controllability out of the box. The coloration, the controls, all of that on the light aren't very good. My guess is if I would buy the Giesemann controller or an Apex, that would solve all of these problems. But as I don't have another $500 to blow right now on an Apex or $200 on the Giesemann controller, I'm gonna give this a try for quite a while. But all in all, I really like it. The other issue I had was trying to warranty this through Giesemann. At least during the holiday period, they are really hard to get a hold of, and these lights are really hard to get a hold of in the US these days. Bulk Reef Supply is no longer selling these lights, and that makes getting a hold of another set pretty hard to do. My guess is the reason Bulk Reef Supply isn't selling these anymore is at the $500 price point, they just don't compete with the AIs and the Radions. But at a $250 price point, they are a fantastic light. So overall, I'm very happy. At $250, it allowed me to get 3 lights, which, because I have everything mounted close to my tank, I really need that. Obviously, I could have lifted everything up and had a better beam spread. I would have lost a little par by doing that, but I really like my hood. I like having the LEDs in the hood, so this is working great for me. So everything's said and done. I'm happy with the lights. I'm happy with the choice. I'm hopeful for the future that someday I will be able to afford an Apex and solve the controllability issues. But other than that, these are the lights I'll be running on my tank for quite a while. And I'm actually really happy with the way everything has turned out. So if you like what I do, hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you on the next episode of Mile High Reefers. Thanks for watching.